Welcome to the Morrison Report. Hosted by Deval Morrison, sales representative for Bosley Real Estate Limited Brokerage. Ms. Morrison has co-authored the best-selling book, Success Today, with Brian Tracy, and has been interviewed on NBC, ABC, and CBS affiliates by Bob Guinea from The Bachelor. Deval, a real estate investor, has spoken to many attendees at her real estate seminars and is currently ranked in the top 5% of agents in her brokerage. Join me in welcoming your host, Deval Morrison.
Welcome to the Morrison Report. I wanted to create a podcast that would give people insights into the Toronto real estate market. You can follow me on Twitter at Deval Morrison and on Instagram as Deval Morrison, and you can like my business page on Facebook. Today we have with us Rob Palm. He's a resort marketing and sales specialist with the Whistler Real Estate. Thanks for joining us, Rob. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Nice to talk to you.
Awesome. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and your career in real estate?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Toronto and went to McGill University with Deval.
Yay!
Yay! And the minute I graduated, I was out west. My parents had moved out to Vancouver and had rented a place in Whistler through the years. And I decided I'd take a break and become a ski instructor for a little while, and spent the first 6 months enjoying myself, and then spent the summer here and got hooked on just the natural surroundings and loved it so much that I decided to spend another year, and then another year, and eventually decided that I couldn't spend any more time anywhere else. So I had to get a little bit more, I guess, organized with what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And my parents were both in sales. My dad with IBM, and my mom was a real estate agent, and her mom was a real estate agent as well. And so it was just sort of a natural fit that I went into real estate. And so that's 18 years ago today.
Wow.
And pretty happy with where I'm at with it.
Wow.
Great place to be.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but what do you feel is so compelling about Whistler, and why do you think people should purchase there?
Well, two things. I mean, what's compelling about Whistler? I mean, you have to come and check it out, obviously, but it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in the world. And, that's a pretty special thing to say, but I wake up every morning and still look out the window and go, wow, this is a really special spot. So that's first and foremost. And then, a bunch of different things that make Whistler special for people from all over the world is it's easy to get to. If you compare us to similar resorts all around the world, getting into Vancouver is a pretty simple flight for a lot of people, whether you're coming from, Eastern Canada or Eastern United States, or you're coming from overseas in Europe and obviously over in Asia and lots of other places. So it's a really simple hub. And then it's only a 2-hour drive from the airport up what used to be a pretty hairy road, has been completely redone for the Olympics back in 2010. Mm-hmm. And so it's a pleasant drive now. And that's a really special thing about certainly our resort. And then our market as a result of that is, it's open to a lot of people from all over the world, which is what makes Whistler really kind of unique and special, for sure. And then from a real estate market, listen, it's really well catered to destination stuff. So what we've done is really set it up for people to come long haul and be able to enjoy themselves and really forget about the world around them. So from an investment point of view, the rents certainly work well for a lot of people to be able to offset what they own here, which is another thing we can talk about later.
Awesome. That sounds great. Can you tell us a little bit more about the lifestyle there, the lifestyle that people enjoy by living out in Whistler?
For sure. So, first and foremost, most people come here for the skiing, and what they realize is that skiing is great and it's amazing, but it's not everything. And all you have to do is spend a little bit of time here in this summer, and you realize how really special it is. There's so many more things to do than just, the skiing part of it. So great, mountain biking, hiking, swimming, it's all at your doorstep. And, the best part about where we sit right now, I could be, let's call it 4 or 5 minutes from my house and be in the middle of the forest and having a great walk with my dogs, or go for a cross-country ski in the winter. I can go and have, one of the beautiful things that I do probably 2 or 3 days a week is I go up first thing in the morning and go for a ski and then come back into the office at, 11 or 12 and get my day started and talk about how great a day I had in the mountain. Most people get jealous and envious, and they can't wait to get back here again. So
Right.
it's, that part of it is great. There is a great community behind us, and not behind us, but sort of within the fabric of Whistler.
Yep.
I've got two boys that are 14 and 16, and they go to school here, and it's a great place to raise a family. Lots of fresh air and great restaurants and amazing amenities that you wouldn't normally get in a town of 12,000 people, right? So it's kind of that perfect world as far as I'm concerned.
Cool. Awesome. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that Whistler is a good place for real estate investors, and why?
Sure. I mean, listen, one of the things that's really been an important part of our, I guess, real estate story through the history of Whistler, we have a lot of, I'll call it restrictions on our development, and there's all a number of reasons why we can't just keep growing like any other large city.
Right.
And one of them is geographic, because we've got lots of mountains around. We just can't keep going up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
We're surrounded by provincial park, so we can't build up into the provincial park. And then as part of the development of the slopes through the years, the provincial government gave the Whistler investors a certain number of bed units to develop, and we're actually at an end of those bed units. So when you start talking about limited supply, with increased demand, pricing usually increases.
Yeah.
And so we're now at a real standstill as far as new development. So what you see is what you get for the most part. We will see some new resident housing, and that's not dissimilar to what any other community has, except for we do it for purchase. And so people like myself, or middle managers in restaurants and whatever, can afford to raise their families here, so that they can grow roots, and it's better for the community inside. So
Right.
that's a real big, on the supply side, very important part. And also just to touch on that, we just, as part of the Olympic bid that we had in 2010, or bid, I should say, the Olympic Games that we hosted, we increased our capacity for water and sewer up to the point where we're at now. And so, for us to increase capacity again in our infrastructure would be exorbitant cost. And so we just don't see new development happening anytime soon. So that's another piece of the supply side. From a demand side, we've become a real international resort over the last, I would say, 10 years more so than ever before. We thought we were pretty special back in 2008 and 2005, but most people didn't know Whistler internationally. And as a result of the exposure of the Olympic Games, people understood what Whistler is more so than ever.
Right.
And so we have more and more people visiting, and that created more momentum for our real estate market, and
of course.
And really kind of pushed us on over the last couple of years. One of the things that's a really interesting part is the currency exchange. And at a 25 to 30 cent, or sorry, I would say 75 or 70 cent dollar, there's a lot of people around the world that make US dollars. And when they look at our real estate and compare it to other places around the world that have similar amenities and similar situations, they want to come and visit, and they also want to come and buy because it's basically 30% off,
right,
compared to a lot of the other resorts. So that's a big factor. And then finally, over the last, I guess, year and a half, one of the big stories is that one of our biggest competitors, Vail Resorts, just purchased the Blackcomb.
Yeah.
Last September, they finalized the deal, and they're the number one resort operator in the world. Mm-hmm. They have, just an amazing network of people that are tied into the Vail brand, and as a result of that, we're just going to all of a sudden see a whole lot more, people. It's a whole new group of visitors and investors that are going to come to Whistler. And as a result of that, listen, as an investor, one of the things you want to make sure of is if you buy a property, you want to be able to rent it.
Of course.
And that revenue is I think is just going to be fantastic over the next 3 to 4 years, even 5 years, as people really want to come and discover Whistler.
Right.
So that's another big piece.
Yeah.
And then finally, because we're on the West Coast, it seems that we've done so much better from a weather perspective in the winter time.
Right.
And I mean, the amount of snow that we have this year is absolutely fantastic. And so from a weather perspective, we've really done a good job of weatherproofing ourselves, and done a number of things with our resort to make it not just about winter. Even though we've had great winters, summertime has become this amazing place. And, we have festivals almost every weekend. We hold the Canadian or the Ironman Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We have Wanderlust. We have all these festivals come through week after week after week. And that just, it fills the resort all the way through. When I first moved here, there were, probably 2 weekends out of the summer we're busy. And the rest of the time, there was just nobody around. And now we have this amazing, vibrant resort through the summertime too, which is great.
Right. So it's turned into sort of more of a 4-season market. So are there a lot of downsizers out there? Or are the majority of people really buying it as a vacation property?
So, interestingly enough, most of our market comes from the lower mainland of British Columbia. So last year and pretty typically over the last, I'll call it 10 years, about 70% of our buyers come from Vancouver. Most people think that, we're such an international resort, and we are from a visitor perspective, but from an ownership perspective, generally speaking, we're regional. But those 30% that come in and buy, they're, from all over the world, and we have a really strong contingent of people that come from Ontario that own properties here. And what we're seeing more so than ever before is, families like my parents who wanted to, they lived in Ontario for most of their lives, and they've decided they want to make a change, and they're moving across the country and, rather than getting a big place in Vancouver, which is, fairly expensive.
Of course, yeah.
Comparatively, it makes more sense for them to have a place in Whistler. And they have, some grown kids with some grandkids on the way or grandkids. And, we're calling our Whistler properties like that they'll come and buy almost like family catchers, right? People come and they all want to congregate in Whistler as their kind of home base. And then everybody fingers off to where they live, whether they're overseas or not, but it's a great place to come and visit. So that's part of it. We do have a lot of downsizers. What we're finding is even people from Vancouver are, selling their larger homes and getting a small, pied-à-terre in Vancouver, and then they're buying a good sized property up here to spend more time and spend, their vacation and their retirement time up here. So it's been that part of it's a big change for us. And I think it has a lot to do with the way that the highways changed. It's an easy drive. I mean, I will drive down and back on a daily basis, not a daily basis, probably every 2 weeks I'll be down and back from Vancouver easily in a day. Whereas years past, it was, geez, you might not make it back, or it was a long drive and, it's not worth it. So now it's just so much easier to do. And it's more and more families are realizing that we can bring up our kids here in Whistler and they can have a great life.
Right.
We can have a great life. And if I need to go down to the city to do some work, I can go down for 2-3 days at a time, or, come there and back. And so we have people in the community, which is amazing.
Wow. Geez, that's amazing. That's great. So, and how is the vacation rental market out there? Are people using AirBNB to rent out their chalets? How does the rental market work there?
So there's any number of ways you can do it. There are professional managers where you can hand over the keys to your place and they'll take care of everything for you, right down for the linens and the cleaning and the everything. And then, you book your time and make sure that you're in house when you want to be.
Right.
And when you show up, everything looks pristine and perfect. And some people love that part simply because it's just, there's no pressure, there's no worries. Then there's definitely, Airbnb has come into Whistler over the last, I guess, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there were lots of different vacation ownership websites. And one of the big ones that we have in town here, which is originally based in Whistler, is called Allura Direct, which not a lot of people know about.
It's called, you said Allura Direct?
Yeah. So ALLURA Direct.
Okay.
And it's a great website. And basically, they've really spent a lot of time focusing their marketing on Whistler, and then they also do a number of other resorts. I don't know if it's all the way through Canada or just in BC.
Okay.
But great website presence, and then also a fantastic back end for owners to be able to really rent their properties and manage their properties. And it's almost like, painting by numbers. It's all templated and set up, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
So now's the time for you to send this letter and this template or this email, and make sure you pick up your deposit. It's all automated, which is fantastic, and then spits out all sorts of revenue statements, and it's really, really well done. So that's definitely a good option. And I have people as far away as Florida that own properties here that run their rental properties, vacation rental properties.